Okay, girls. What is this word? This big word that starts with an O.
Obedience.
Okay, what your dad might say to you, I need you to do something for me. You can say to your dad, well, I'm too tired. I don't really want to. But when you choose to do what mommy or daddy tell you to do, that is obedience. And when children obey, God is glad. And we've heard a lot of stories in the last few weeks about good examples of people who obey God. First, remember the story of Noah? He did everything God asked him to do. And last week, we had the story of Daniel and his friends. And they chose to be loyal and obey God. It showed their faith and their love for God. When we choose to obey, we honor God. Well, last month, we did the story of brave Joshua. Remember, he led God's people to the promised land. They were all camped over here, and they were going to the promised land over there, but there was a river in between, the Jordan River, that had scary water, deep and fast. Well, Joshua wasn't afraid. He trusted God, and he did what God said to do. And God let the people walk across on dry land while he held the river water back so that all the people could safely get to the new land. That was trusting God, and it was obedience too, because they did what God told them to do. So Joshua is another example of obedience to God. And let's see what happens next in the story. So God's people were in the new land, but there were some people who lived there already, and they did not want to share this land. Some of these people lived in Jericho. It was a city with very big, strong walls. But God told Joshua his plan. He said, march your army around Jericho. For 6 days, march one time each day. On the 7th day, march around 7 times. Have the priests blow the horns, and then they will blow long and loud. Tell the people when you hear that long, loud trumpet sound, shout. And what did God tell everybody to do when they heard the long and loud sound?
Shout.
Right. And God said the walls of the city will fall down. Well, Joshua told the people God's plans. Now those walls look mighty big and mighty strong, but God's people obeyed. On day 1, they marched. All around Jericho's tall walls, they marched. No one said a word. Silently, they went back to their camp. And they did this for 5 more days. They did this. Then the 7th day came. And they marched around, do you remember how many times? 7 times. The priests blew their horns. Then they blew long and loud. And what were they supposed to do when they heard the long, loud sound?
Shout.
Shout. Everyone shouted. The ground began to shake, and the walls began to crumble and crashed. And God's people marched straight into the city, just as God had promised. This is Deacon's favorite story. He doesn't draw walls good, but he can glue paper squares, and that's supposed to be the wall falling down. And Josh and Deacon likes to make little walls like this and reenact that story by making the walls tumble down. But you know, when he knocks his wall down, he just kind of pushes it down. What made that great big wall of Jericho fall down?
God.
God made it fall down because the people trusted in him and they obeyed him. Now, you know, God's plan might not be exactly the way we might think to do things, but is his plan always the best?
Yes.
It is always the best. Now, here's your question. Phoebe, whom are you really obeying when you choose to obey mommy and daddy or your teacher?
God.
You're obeying God. What do you show God, Chloe, when you obey him?
You show obedience.
And do you show him love?
Mm-hmm.
How about honor?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, here's your Bible words. Chloe, for you. There are two from the book of Proverbs. Remember, Proverbs is the book of wisdom, helps us make wise choices. You want to read these words?
Okay. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. Proverbs 3:5-6.
Now, what do those verses tell you?
It tells you that no matter what you want to do, you still have to obey God.
That's right. And in other words, God knows best, right? And do you want your path to be straight?
Yes.
I do too. Okay. All of these Bible people we've been hearing about, there were Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel, and Joshua, and Noah. They all had confidence in their powerful God. You too can know that your obedience gives God the opportunity to do mighty things on your behalf. So when hard things come to you, like difficult situations in life, show that you love and trust God by the way that you just speak kindly and act justly and show love to others. Okay? And you know, we have a song, and I bet you everybody knows what our song is going to be. Come over here, girls. Do your song.
Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came a tumbling down. You may talk about your man of Gideon, you may talk about your man of Saul, but there's none like good old Joshua at the battle of Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came a tumbling down. Right up to the walls of Jericho, they marched with spears in hand. Come blow them ram horns, Joshua cried, 'cause the battle is in God's hands. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came a tumbling down. Then the lamb and sheep horns began to blow, and the trumpets began to sound. Joshua told the children to shout that morning, and the walls came a tumbling down. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, and the walls came a tumbling down. And the walls came tumbling down. Yay!
Do it. Go. Oh. Say bye-bye, girls.